Hello and welcome back to Questions from Quarantine. I'm Tara Tyrell and I'm here with Dr. Margaret Bourdeaux and Professor Juliette Kayyem at the Belfer Center. Our first question this week will go to Margaret. As we at Harvard are well aware, we're gearing up for the fall semester, but it seems like every university has its own different plan on how to reopen and how they'll handle the fall. And I just read today in the New York Times that there are over 6,300 cases associated with colleges and universities. Dr. Bourdeaux, I want to throw first to you. What does your ideal opening for schools and universities look like if there is an ideal?
Yes, well, it's going to be interesting. I think the nut we have to crack is that everyone is trying to reopen, and there's just a mad scramble right now. Every university trying to figure it out. Most universities wanting to do surveillance testing, testing people twice a week, let's say. And at the same time, we have rising cases or very high caseloads in many states. And so they also want to test folks to make a diagnosis and to try to get their arms around it. So we just have this crazy mad scramble for testing, which is a very limited resource, actually. And so the nut we have to crack in the next couple of weeks is how to come together as a country to really prioritize scarce resources around testing, come up with modalities of surveillance testing that are not going to drain all of our supply. Hopeful those conversations are starting to happen. Of course, I wish we were further along. The ideal, of course, is that everybody gets the testing they need to be able to see where to be able to control the disease in places where it is rising, and universities and schools and K through 12 and daycare workers and construction sites and essential. Everybody gets surveillance testing. So it's a formidable little problem, but that's the ideal.
We need 8 more weeks. We need to tell everyone, no fun, nothing. And social distancing doesn't have to be like it was in March. We actually have figured out more about the virus. We can be outside more. You can limit contact, masking. So I'm very cautious about these openings. And I have to be honest with you, this week, GW, which is one of the first schools out saying we're going to be in person, retracted that. They are now going to be online. So I kind of wonder what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, and whether the universities will say this was a great planning, but no. And I think part of that goes to also the experience of college. Can you actually have in-person classes or hybrid classes, but all the other stuff? I mean, how many, you guys, we're older than you, Tara, but how much class time do you actually remember about college? It's the parties and the sports is a huge deal now. The NCAA has not determined which sports, if any, will go back. They'll clearly not be spectators. You can tell an athlete, look, you're going to be fine. Just listen to the coach. But, this is a 19-year-old teenage boy. I got 2 of them, they're alone. They're not thinking about their healthiness. And so you're seeing a lot of this dynamic playing out in sports, the equity issue, is it really worth it issue. And I think what's interesting, if I look at professional sports, and I'm advising in this space on the college and professional side, if I look at professional sports, I'm starting to see the writing on the wall that this experiment, in particular with baseball, with what happened to the Marlins, but also with football, with very, very famous athletes choosing to protect their bodies. I think the market in some ways is speaking and saying, I'm taking the year off because even if I get it and even if I fight it, I'm not I'm healthy. That's my job, is being healthy. How am I going to feel 5 years from now, right? And so they're taking the long view. And it kind of reminds me, just to end, a couple months ago, we had a conversation about consumer confidence, that I kept saying, look, a governor can tell me I'm going out, an airline can tell me it's safe to fly. I'm not doing either, right? I went to one restaurant since we last spoke. I hated it, the entire experience. I would rather be outside having a drink with a girlfriend than reading a menu online and eating in plastic forks. It's nothing, it's not worth it. So I think you're seeing a market speak as well, that they're going to wait as well.
Can I add on to that? Which is something that getting back to that issue around trust, I think the other dynamic, it's not just the science, it's the fact that we have to bring along a lot of folks. And one of the things I'm seeing down here in Georgia is, they had a whole plan for reopening schools, and, they told teachers they were going to be in person via a Zoom meeting. You know, and the teachers were like, what are you talking about? You can't even meet with me face to face to be safe. I'm not going to go teach in a classroom for $40,000 a year. No, you know, and so you have to be able to convince folks that they're, you know, it's safe to go back in the water and they're just not playing ball. And this is where, you know, when we've had this kind of failed federal response that hasn't engendered trust or confidence, this is how we're paying that price. You know, all these businesses are like, we've got to reopen schools because we need our workers back. And we're like, sorry, you know, no. So I think those are the dynamics that are going to be playing out over this next couple of weeks. You know, some very interesting conversations among different sectors of our population to one another.
Thank you both. Well, I know we here at Harvard are thinking of our students, wishing we could give you the regular fall semester that we all three love. This has been Questions from Quarantine. Please hashtag Questions from Quarantine for your chance to be featured in a future episode. Thank you.